Have you been trying to figure out how to travel but still pay off debt, save, and increase your income all at the same time? Or maybe you're feeling a little bit discouraged in figuring out like what to do next when it comes to creating financial freedom. This thing that you feel like you see other people doing, but you haven't had the opportunity to get a handle on just yet. Well, this conversation that you're about to watch with my student Paloma hopefully will inspire and motivate you to be able to figure out what your next step is. And honestly, it's so amazing that I can't even count the things that she's been able to do since joining our community. My goal is to make sure that you have the information, but also the motivation and inspiration to stay focused along the way. And I think you should stick around to the end because you're going to get some gems that are going to just make some things unlock and feel like, oh, finally, I see what I need to do now. And if you are truly serious about getting change and you are ready to invest in yourself to get results like this, then book a complimentary financial consultation with me using the link in the description below. We can chat, see if it's a good fit, see if I might be able to support you, and go from there because our proven plan has worked for so many women around the world, and I would love for you to be next.
I was raised to believe that things about money you figure out yourself. As a first generation, like child of immigrants, there's so many expectations that you achieve, but you never stop to really take a look at what you've done because you need to get to that next, you feel like you need to get to that next step. I had a lot of personal anxiety around money management, but even sitting down with a budget was so scary to me that I kept running away from it. Like I would be stressed out because I was like, where did my money go?
Let's dive in.
I have great news. I got promoted again.
Yay! How many promotions is that? Two? Three?
Um, two, two since we started working. 'Cause I don't know if you remember the first time that you like really helped me through. What do I say? How do I ask for it? But wait, what if they say this? And just like the nerves of knowing that I deserve to make that ask. To now, 2 years, I'm doing it again, and I was like, no, I've done the work. You've seen it.
There's really no question that this makes sense. So
Mhm.
let's not dabble around. Okay, that's so fun. So I'm excited because we get to chat about your journey and just the timeline of you joining our community in early 2022 and
Mhm.
now it being 2025 and your life looking so different than it did then. But this vision that you had and the boxes that you've been able to check of the things that you said you wanted to do up until now. And so I would love to know originally, like, what was your biggest challenge before we got started working together?
I think at the moment I didn't have the words for it. Initially, I thought it was just a money management issue. I knew I was making money and it wasn't bad money, but I didn't always spend it well.
Hmm.
Like if in the moment something spoke to me, I kind of spent money on it. There were a couple of times that, around rent time, around I was paying off my car at the time. Like when those times like I would be stressed out because I was like, where did my money go? And I think through working and being in the community and doing the plan that we had, I realized first that I had a lot of personal anxiety around money management. So like even I had a vague idea of how to do a budget, but even sitting down with a budget was so scary to me that I kept running away from it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think those two were like my biggest challenges, I think.
Amazing. So then what made you say, like, you're dealing with this thing, it stresses you out a little bit. Okay, I need to get some help in this area. You know what I mean? Like, what made you not kind of try to figure it out by yourself, but be open to getting support?
Um, I think no, not I think I know. Our first like our interview that we had in December, a few months before I got started, um, I think it was realizing in our conversation, first of all, how easy it was to talk to you and share that. For me, I want to say, like, there is such an expectation of perfection.
Mm,
And I was afraid of going and asking for help because then that would mean I wasn't doing things right and I didn't know how to do it. Um, and so like I said, meeting with you and having that conversation with you and first that warmth that you bring and this ease of talking and just like your authenticity um, it made it really easy for me to open up and like really share from my heart a lot of these concerns and fears that I had. Um, and then like just realizing I know that I work better with support. I know that I work better with community, but I was raised to believe that things about money you figure out yourself. And in our conversation, like I was able to see like that wasn't the case. It didn't have to be like that, especially given that my parents tried to teach me what they could, but they're immigrants to this country, so they have a whole different um, perspective of money and how to manage it and how to make it grow. And so just realizing that what I had learned wasn't was what was going to take me to where I wanted to go.
So important. Yeah. And I hear it all the time, right? And our parents are only ever doing the best that they know how
Mhm.
to give us what they can. But oftentimes, right, things are moving so quickly, things are evolving so quickly, especially, let's say, like in the personal finance space, that how you build wealth 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago might be different than how you build wealth now. And so you have to update what it is that you're learning and make sure that it's aligned for you and whatever your vision is. And so, it can be challenging to step outside of what we know,
Mhm.
to entertain something different. And that's why I try to be really sensitive and understanding that it's a topic that is not the easiest thing to discuss, and that there's a lot of layers there. And we're really talking about a lot of other things when we're talking about money. And to
Yes.
acknowledge that, as a person who is an immigrant myself, coming from, you know, family that is from another country and had to navigate a completely different economic system, and not blaming them for not being able to fill in the gaps that there are in joining a completely different country and way of being. But to know that, like, that was a foundation that they gave me to be able to build on for myself. And so I love that were able to kind of like figure out, okay, well, what's going to work for me. Grateful for everything they did, but also like I need to figure out my own path. And I'd love to know, like, how joining our community you feel like positively impacted you over the last couple of years. Like, there's some highlights or things that really were significant.
Yeah. Well, I think being in that space, first of all, it made me realize that I wasn't alone, right? There's because it's again, it was something that I was taught we don't talk about. I didn't talk about it. And so I was kind of suffering in this what felt like a hamster wheel by myself, but being in that community with all these other ladies who were also really successful go-getters and like just seeing how they were also sometimes struggling with similar things or maybe the same thing as I was myself, just knowing that it wasn't just a me problem was super beneficial. And then being able to share and I guess it kind of acted as a mirror, right? I think that as a first generation like child of immigrants, there's so many expectations that you achieve, but you never stop to really take a look at what you've done because you need to get to that next. You feel like you need to get to that next step. And so being community in this community and like working with you, you all like held that mirror up to me and were like, wait, did you stop? Did you celebrate that? Did you like hear what you just said that you accomplished? And so just that like really it helped grow my belief so much in myself, in my capacity. And then also there was the thing in particular where you teach us about like the lies we tell ourselves, and so stopping to question um, what am I saying, and is that true? Because so often we make decisions and we take action based on lies, on things that maybe at some point they were truth, maybe they probably never were, but we're allowing them to build a reality. And so just again that stopping to question and reframe has helped me so much, like not only financially, but just like in all other aspects of life.
Oh my goodness. So good. You hit on so many good things. And, I think you were one of like the OG students in our community, right? Where we were literally building everything out from the ground up. And so You got to be a part of that test I was kind of doing with, okay, let's see if we kind of figure out like what are our limiting beliefs around this before we jump into what everyone wants to talk about, which they think is like, okay, it's about budgeting. Like I'm having an issue trying to budget, and it's like, well, there might be a layer beneath that we have to address to be able to have an easier time creating a strategy and entertaining the idea of like digging a little bit deeper into our
Mhm.
psychology and what might make up how we interact with money and what do we actually want to say and think about money, and like you mentioned, slowing down to ask ourselves some questions like, well, this is what I believe, but is it actually even the case? Like, where did I get this thing from? And do I still want it? And so I love that you were just open to being able to do that work and allow yourself to be uncomfortable, taken out of your comfort zone, be seen by other people. And I know that I have a tendency to hold y'all to celebrating the wins and really like slowing down to milk them, because it's so easy for us to just smooth over when things go right. But when something goes wrong, we could still talk about something that happened in sixth grade in 1997 or whatever, you know? But like when things go right, it's so easy to jump and move on to like, okay, well, now I have to keep going because there's another thing to accomplish. But
Mhm.
if we don't acknowledge all of the small things, the wins that we have overcome, the way that we're progressing, and I can flip anything into a win,
Yes.
um, that it's going to be so much harder to stay motivated in the
Mhm.
journey. And so one of the questions I get all the time is like, oh, well, how do you stay motivated? Because this stuff isn't necessarily going to happen overnight. What have you found helps keep you on track as you're trying to build wealth, which is more of a marathon than a sprint, in your own journey?
Ooh. Um, I think it has been that, like, the stopping to look to like realize how far I've gone. Um, like just today, as I shared, like I just got this promotion, and so this promotion came with a raise, and since 2022, my salary has gone up about $20,000 in the same organization. So that's like 2 years, 3 years, right? Like that doesn't generally happen. And I like realistically, like I thought that I was gonna have to leave my organization to be able to get that type of growth, because you don't hear you oft like that's what you hear. That's what people tell you. If you want to grow, you need to change you need to change jobs. Um, and that was hard for me to hear because I love my job and I love the organization, and I love the trust that I've built there. So like that one today was like, wow, wow. So yeah, that now I'm excited. I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to just sit in the celebration, but in the back of my head, I'm like, what can I do next?
Which is good, right? It hopefully fuels you to know that you're capable, and that things are possible for you to continue to grow. And that it's just like, this is just a springboard. And it's so funny because I can't wait to talk about like tangible kind of like wins that have happened, right? So getting two promotions, being able to increase your salary, tens of thousands of dollars over the last couple of years alone is significant. Um, that like you love your job. So many people hate their jobs, right? Like those are lies that someone else is like, well, maybe not lies, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily fits for your situation. So while that might be the case for someone else, that they might have to switch jobs to make more and feel good, it's like, again, questioning things to ensure that things are aligned for you in your journey. And so I think about, when you were coming up on like reviews for a conversation about how your job was going, and we talked about like how do you negotiate and things like that, and just helping you to grow your skills, which you had the skills, just we practiced a little bit, we helped inform you, and a lot of it had to do with like nerves and things like that, because it's something that's different. A lot of women don't end up negotiating and things like that. And if I remember correctly, I think that you had mentioned like getting increases or something like that, like in your organization for other people as well. Like it wasn't just you that was
Uh,
impacted by making that negotiation, that you were able to affect the organization at a grander scale. And so I would love for you to dig into growing your confidence over the last few years as a professional, in your own money journey. Like how has that been for you to become more sure of how you show up?
yeah. Yeah, so I guess touching back on that. So when I did my and I remember we sat and it was like two or three of our meetings that I was like, all right, I know we talked about it, but can we review it again? Like, what do I say and what is this? Because there was just I had never negotiated before, and I work in nonprofit. So in my mind, I think this isn't just a me thing. This is a thing overall when you work in nonprofits. Um, we think that they only have this much money allotted to this. And yes, budgets are tight in nonprofit world, but there is space to play with things. And also, there has been a lot about, going back to being value centered, making sure that you're choosing organization to work with organizations and jobs that align with your values. Um, that was we start when we started having that conversation around negotiating and asking for a raise, and I think that really helped me learn um, a lot of what like the importance of what I wanted, not
Hmm.
just what was going to work for my organization or what was going to work for my parents or anyone
Mm.
around me. um, and the importance of centering that in every aspect of my life, which I feel has been so important in me growing since we've started working together, to the point that even in relationships, because we also had at one point that conversation, right? Because we talk about money and we talk about growing money, and you want to just think about your job or your budget, but who you share space with makes
Mm.
plays such a big role in your life and how you think, and the beliefs that you're going to have, and the way that you're going to go after things. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah. No, yeah, just being able to speak up, to be
Mhm.
able to advocate for yourself, to be able to say what you want. And do we always get everything we want all the time? No, but that doesn't hold us back from saying, what we think or speaking our mind. And so I think, definitely over the course of the last couple of years, that has been exciting to watch, is just how you've been able to develop your ability to stand your own ground within yourself and be more sure of throwing yourself out there, trying something different, and seeing where it gets you. And I know there's like a lot of fun, tangible wins that you've had. If I remember correctly, like wanted to move into your own place, you wanted to save an emergency fund, you wanted to travel a little bit, and
Yeah.
and be able to pay off some debt and things like that. So I would love to hear like what tangible goals do you feel like you've hit in the last few years that have contributed to you kind of putting these building blocks in place for
Mhm.
building wealth.
Mhm. So, oh my God, right now that you started, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I did do that. I think my reality is so different than what it used to be that now I'm just like, yeah, that was a part of it. What are you talking about? But no, you like, wow, wow.
You
Yeah,
wanted to move what closer to the city, like all the
yeah,
things.
I wanted to move closer to the city, and now I'm like now I am in the city. And when I first, and it was a step by step thing, right? I had moved back into my parents. I was trying to figure out what made sense in life, that realignment. And then I started working with you, and it was, taking those small steps that we talked about. And so I finished paying off my car. I was able to move out of my parents' house, and first with a roommate. We lived together for about a year and a half, something like that, and now I have my own place. Right now, I am really excited, nervous, because I get to start looking for a new place and just like the possibilities of that. Let's see what else. Yeah,
I
so
think
much
you saved.
traveling.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think I saw that you traveled, and I think I've seen that you've been able to travel at times without it like becoming a burden or holding you back. Like I think you had said that you saved a little bit of an emergency fund, you traveled, and you still was like, oh, there's money, like there's still money, so in the bank, and so
So I think, yeah, that was a big one. I think for me, one of the things, I hadn't gone back to visit my family in Mexico in years, just because I think over 12 years, because I once I had to pay for the tickets.
Right. When your parents are, covering the ticket, it's like, okay, I'll be there. When it's
Yeah.
you, you're like, how much is
You're like, wow, that's expensive. How did y'all do that? How did y'all do that?
it?
Um, but no, just like again,
Aw.
focusing on my values and like this trip was important to me. So just last year I was able to go back after 12 years and I was with family for about a week and a half and then I went for a week after that. I went to Mexico City and made a solo trip out of that. So and all of this I did saving for and planning for ahead of time. So I put it on my credit card for the points, but I was able to pay it off as soon as I got back home. It wasn't like I paid it on my credit card and no, I'm still worried about it. No, like it was I took care of myself.
How does that feel to think about that? Like, you have been able to grow in being able to be more independent, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I can find the words for it. I think as I'm very tied to family, but this sense of freedom and liberty is really important to me, like being able to do for me. And so, in traveling was something I've always wanted to do, but I kept putting on the back burner. So, I don't know. I don't think that there's enough. I don't think that I could find the words to say how that really feels because even right now as I'm thinking about it, I feel myself tearing up. But it's ah, it's so expansive. It almost like I feel like there's this little like there's a sunrise coming out of my chest when I think about it. Because it was one of those things that I promised myself when I was a
Oh,
kid,
yeah.
when when I didn't know what it was going to take to be able to give that to myself. And then, I went through a period of time in life where because I was not being intentional and because I was not in the right spaces, I was allowing other things to kind of stop me from that.
Mm, mm,
And so then years later, having finally achieved it because I put in the work,
yeah.
I feel like that's what makes it so much better. Not like I don't know that I would have appreciated it as much if someone else had paid for the trip. If someone
Mm,
else had like it would have been nice, but appro- I would not appreciate it as much. I would not have grown as much. Um, and I would not have learned as much in those 2 years to be able to now be like, all right, that was great. I am ready for something else.
oh my goodness, it's so good, right? And it's like you keeping your word with yourself, right? To younger you about what you were going to make happen. And that's one way of building confidence, right? Appreciation and trust literally are what make up the definition of confidence. And so when you appreciate yourself and when you can trust in yourself, you can trust your own word, even if it takes a little bit of time, then you are able to boost and grow your confidence in yourself,
Mhm.
assured that like you are going to prioritize yourself. You're going to do things for yourself to make yourself healthy, to make yourself well, to provide what you need. Um, and I think that that's, of course, like you mentioned, it's nice to know that you're supported, like that other people would step in to back you in a situation, but there's something significant and special about knowing that you can do something, that when you put your mind to it and focus, are able to make stuff happen. And I would like to ask, I don't know what the answer will be, but here it's going to be interesting. But like, do you feel like it was really hard? Do you feel like it was painful, really restrictive? You couldn't have fun, because I feel like a lot of people are like scared to like look at their numbers and get serious in their finances because they've heard lies or they've heard other people's stories where they had to really like cut back and do it that way in order to make progress. I'd love to know if you felt like it was really hard and restrictive and painful over the last few years while you were focusing on your finances.
I haven't found it to be so. Uh, because I've had moments, kind of, before I started working with you and going through the program and being in this community, there were times where I did budget very restrictively and it was not sustainable.
Right.
Like, that's why it became this thing where, yeah, I would go for a couple of months where I was saving money, but then there would come a moment where something would come up. I would have to spend the money for something, and then I would get really stressed out, and I would fall back into kind of like the harmful patterns or like the not practicing the budgeting and all this stuff that allowed me to save. But I think that that was such a huge difference. Understanding that sometimes that consistency can look different than always being like super tight and super, I don't know, like super money conscious. And I think the budgeting for me became kind of an intrinsic thing. Yes, I had to sit with it actually make that time a couple of months to look at it and like put in, like, I spend this much on this, I spend this much on that. But then it became this intrinsic thing because the numbers stay very similar. And I think that what I learned here that really helped me was aligning what I was spending with my values. And so just realizing that sometimes I wouldn't call myself an emotional shopper, but sometimes like, if things were really bad, I'd be like, you know what? If I might buy myself that pair of earrings, I am going
Yeah.
to feel better. Um, and I was able to do it enough times that it would become a problem. But after leaning into this and everything that I learned here, I was able to see, like, okay, will that I would want it and it would make me smile, but will it align with what I want in the
Mm.
long run? And then sometimes the answer was yes, and sometimes the answer was no. But at least in the moment, I could make a decision, and I could take myself into consideration and my emotions in the moment, but I could also balance it with like what I wanted and what I was working towards.
Oh,
Uh,
so good.
yeah, so yeah, I don't feel like I've struggled as much.
Great.
There have been periods where I have had to make changes in where my money is going. Like right now I'm not doing nails
Okay.
because I am looking for an apartment more like in a different part of the city.
Yeah.
I am okay with that, but that
Right.
was a choice.
A choice that you made, not one that you felt was forced. And I
Hmm.
think that's the difference, is feeling empowered in knowing that it's you that's deciding what's happening because you're clear on your values, what you want, and how your choices can directly affect your ability to have more of what you really desire, as opposed to a lot of the times I think what happens is we're in this cycle of stress when it comes to money. So
Hmm.
we're using money to cope with the stress, but the things that we're spending the money on aren't the things that we actually value. They just kind of make us feel better in the moment, and then we feel more stressed because we aren't getting any closer to our financial goals. So it's like this cycle that we feel stuck in, this hamster wheel, where you have to intervene to break that cycle and find another way of coping with whatever's coming up emotionally, having a decision making framework for what you do with money and how, so that the way that you act with it is based on your vision, not how you feel in the moment. And
Hmm.
so, those are all things that I think, are things that I had to work through in my journey constantly, because this is never ending, right? We're constantly learning what it looks like in this season of our lives. So are you never going to get your nails done ever again? No. Like, it might be a period of time that you're making a decision, and then you will figure out how to integrate back in this and that, as it makes sense. And with the promotion, I mean, maybe now the math is mathing better than it's ever mathed before. Like,
Yeah.
um, things work out better than we can expect when we open ourselves up to that possibility, and we take ourselves seriously to some extent, and begin
Hmm.
to peel back the layers of what's holding us back. And I would love to know, like, if there was anything since joining our community you felt pleasantly surprised by, like, as far as results or outcomes go, that you're like, I didn't know that this was going to be a part of, like, working on my money.
Yeah. I would say my level of security and confidence. Like I thought I was already a confident person. Um, but there's so many spaces now that I guess just having that financial security, I did not know how much that was affecting me until it wasn't there anymore.
Mm.
Um, and just the space that that gives me to think and to make decisions and to focus my life. Um, yeah, that was yeah that, a life changer.
I love it. I love seeing like all the things that you're up to and what you're doing, and it just makes my heart smile to know that you have shown up for yourself, you know, um, to become, right? To allow yourself to become whatever the next version of yourself is. Every version of you is phenomenal and amazing. But we
Hmm.
have this ability to kind of like butterflies, right? Caterpillars are cool and butterflies are cool. And so it's like, how do we allow ourselves to kind of go into the cocoon? What is it, the area that we want to work on in our lives? And come out as the butterfly or the next version of ourselves that can handle different things, that can take on different responsibilities,
Hmm.
that can show up in a different way for ourselves and for our family and friends, and do an experiment with our lives. You know, that's one of my favorite words, right? One of my favorite things is like, just
Just
do an experiment, you know, because then you don't have to commit to it forever. It's like, let's see what happens, and then you can go back to doing things the way that you did before if this doesn't feel good or it doesn't work. And I think that makes it easier to do something different because then it doesn't feel like you're like tying yourself to this new thing. You're really opening yourself up to just playing. And I think more play and playfulness can lead to amazing differences in our lives. And so it's so cool to see like the conversation that we had initially, all the things that you wanted to do, and like I remember like, oh yeah, that's possible, you know. And so it's like when you're on the other side, you can see it for someone differently sometimes than they can while they're in it. But then it's like now you're sending me messages, and you're like, I just saved, you know, $1,000. I paid off my car. Like I'm getting the promotion, and knowing that like these things were already in the works, and you get to the point where you had goals, but now you have to go back to the drawing table to make new goals because you hit them.
hmm.
So now it's like, what do I want to do now? Like who do I want to become now? And so that's going to be the exciting next level for you. I know is like, okay, we've gotten kind of to the edge of where I thought I wanted to be, and
Yeah.
now there's possibility for more and deeper, you know,
Yeah, but I was
experiments.
like, I think, yeah, you're, I'm like, you're so right. Like, we're getting to the edge of, I was afraid to speak some of the things that I spoke, and we talked, like, because I wanted them, but I couldn't see a way there.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I'm like, you're right. Like, I have them, I've done it, I've attained it. So, uh, yeah, some more exciting times coming.
Yeah, so exciting. Okay. So then, what would you tell someone who's considering investing in themselves to join our community and do this work?
Mhm. I would say do it. It's a lot more attainable than you think it is. Um, if you're concerned about the money, because I will say at one point, like that was my big thing. Like, can I afford to do this? I would say like you can't afford not to, right? Because what I invested to be a part of this community and to be in this space has multiplied itself over so many times. And there's like you provide so much value, like not only like yes knowledge, yes, like you have done so much yourself, but also like I think of it as a very curated space. And the other participants of the community, like there's so much knowledge there as well, and so much uh I don't know, like inspiration, just the value. I read a book at some point that said like the importance of being around joyful people and how they affect your life. And like even that affects like the life, like someone that I know that does not know you would still get like their life is 10% better because you are somehow in my life. And there's so much truth to that because I feel like every time I get to be in your space, number one, I'm not afraid. to name some of those things that are like I think I want this, but I don't know that I know how to get there. And sometimes there's a little bit of like I don't know that I deserve it, and you're like by the time I leave your space, you're I'm like yeah, she's right. I deserve that, and I deserve this, and I know that I take some of that out of here. Like I learned so much, and but then I am able to give so much outside of the space that I share with you. So there's always
Oh,
that.
you are the joyful people I get to spend my time with, right? So it's like a very reciprocal community in that